I played Adruh One Futuh, and I'm really conflicted about it. Adruh puts you in the middle of crisis, as the space station you're on has just had some kind of catastrophe, and you're tasked with both surviving and also trying to piece together what happened. If you've seen the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, you'll have a pretty solid idea of the premise of the game. Surviving in Adrift really only means making sure you have enough oxygen, which is relatively abundant, as the game also uses it as a sort of breadcrumb trail to ensure that you're going in the right direction. Discovering what happened is a bit more complicated a task, as it requires you to really explore around and sift through audio logs and emails between characters. I don't quite know how much of the text and audio logs are mandatory, but if you elect not to look for that stuff, you probably won't know anything about any of the characters, which there are few, and it could dramatically affect your impression of the ending. I really like the mood of Adrift. Most of the game is very stark, which pairs well with being in the vacuum of space. I can recall less than a handful of times there was any kind of music at all, and they managed to add it in the game in a very cool way. In fact, this is actually the case where I was turned on to the game from the main menu. It's just a basic menu with the in-engine whatever going on in the background, but it's set to piano, and I really like it. It's not quite as dark as the E3 trailer was with Moonlight Sonata, but regardless, I think the use of music in Adrift is great. This might be more because of my preference for classical music, but either way, I think you can appreciate what they're going for. My favorite part of Adrift interestingly goes hand in hand with my least favorite part of the game. I like most of the presentation of the game. Despite basically being a 6 degrees of freedom game where you can float through space, most people would probably call this game a walking simulator. Since, spoiler alert, you don't get a gun, and you don't shoot people or anything, so you spend all of your time getting around and looking at some pretty impressive scenes. Even amidst the chaos and dread of looking across your ruined space station, some of the shots are weirdly awe-inspiring. Unfortunately, the oxygen mechanic actively works against you doing this because you constantly need to look for a new source to keep you alive. It's a weird criticism to work through for me, because looking for oxygen is just playing the game. It would practically be like refusing to get ammo in a Call of Duty game. You have to do that to play the game. But so many moments were so cool to look at that I really just wanted to keep looking around instead of having to focus on actually playing the game. This is also true of looking for audio and text logs. Adrift both encourages exploration by rewarding you with an enriched story, but then hammers you down constantly by reminding you that you need oxygen, making it harder to be thorough as you look for more logs. There is a free play style mode that lets you go between individual segments of the game, but not an option in the core game to just ignore the oxygen mechanic entirely and solely look for logs. On paper, managing oxygen while wandering around seems fine, but by the time I finished the game, looking for oxygen was a tedious task that I just didn't want to do anymore, because at that point, I really wanted to actually look for logs and learn more about the story and characters. I'm left asking myself who I think this game is really for. Obviously, if walking simulator is something you've used as a pejorative, there's not really much for you here. If anything, you already dislike this game, and you knew that before you're getting to this point of the review. In fact, if you want more validation, this is likely a game you'll pretty much only play once. There's hardly any replay value beyond getting all of the collectibles or trying to speedrun the game. That being said, if you do like walking simulators, you'll probably like this game, but have similar problems with the oxygen mechanic. Not because it makes the game hard or anything, but because if you're like me, you want to look through every room, and you'll want to have more rooms to look through to know more about these people that are no longer here. I want to play the game more, and it only feels like the oxygen wants to push me into the next room instead of letting me take a breather.